Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you here as always. Thank you for watching. You're watching the VSO Gun Channel, and oftentimes we're covering super serious topics here. And today we're going to have a little bit of a departure and just have some fun. And to do that, we're going to cast some shade on the United States Navy. You guys saw the image in the thumbnail. I'll show it to you here again. This is an official post by the United States Navy published across their social media accounts. I pulled this off of their Facebook account. And there are so many things wrong with this photo that I think it bears a breakdown, in addition to the overarching problems of more than one person thought that this was okay to publish. You got the photographer, who is the primary gatekeeper, because they're going to determine what's a good photo, what's a bad photo, what they're going to throw away, what they're going to edit down. And then in this instance, since we're talking about the United States Navy, they're going to hand it to somebody who's then going to run it through a chain of people that's going to get it over to the social media person. And then the social media person is going to determine, what can I make a good post out of? Unfortunately, that social media person also published this poor dude's personal information that's going to follow him around for the rest of his life. The only saving grace here is he's got a rifle partially obscuring his face. He's wearing sunglasses and a hat, so he might be able to change his name and live a relatively normal life after this, but sorry, I had to do that. Taking one step into photo analysis, we also see that there's a hand on this guy's shoulder, which implies to me that there is an instructor there, a professional, guiding this entire PR debacle that we see unfolding in front of us. So there's another person there that should have had control of this situation. The Navy must be really hard up right now. They must be hurting pretty bad. And to be clear, none of this is the individual in the photo's fault. He was just the guy who volunteered to shoot guns off the deck. Everybody else around him is in error. He clearly does not know what he is doing. And that is fine. Hopefully we'll be able to get some constructive criticism to him. But what I would like to drive home early is you hear all the time, only the cops in the military should have guns because they're properly trained. This right here shows you that that is a complete and utter logical fallacy. So from a firearms professional, we're going to break down this photo after we hear a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by XS Sights. I've been using XS Sights for a long period of time, even before I couldn't see anymore. My eyes have gotten a little bit older, so the big dots are definitely on my list of things that are necessary equipment, but they make other sight profiles as well, like your standard notch and post sight, and typically, up to this point, they have been tritium sights with a photoluminescent ring around them that gives you a lit up sight regardless of the lighting conditions that you're operating in. But now they also offer high visibility fiber optic sights for those of you who want to take advantage of those for your target shooting. They also do everything from a drifter tool to top rails for lever actions, ensuring that regardless of your lighting conditions, XS makes the brightest sight in any light. To reiterate, before we get spooled up, none of this is the fault of the dude in the photo. He is simply the guy who raised his hand when they asked for volunteers to go up and shoot guns off the deck. And why on earth wouldn't you volunteer for that? I would volunteer for that. But there's a whole apparatus around him that failed. And again, the Navy is probably hurting right now for recruitment. This is the kind of disenfranchisement that we see when we got absolute shitbirds in office. It's a cyclical thing. Anyway, let's talk about the gun. First and foremost, we see two shell casings in the frame. That could be accomplished with rapid semi-automatic fire, but if we look closely at the firearm, we can see that it is indeed in the fully automatic position. So he's shooting this gun fully automatic. And that is not the proper stance to shoot a rifle in fully automatic mode, or any gun in any mode, really, but especially not when shooting fully automatic. We'll get to that a little bit later when we get to the actual physical stuff. The most glaring issue that most people see right off the bat is that the scope is mounted backwards. So that's a problem with the armor. They rushed through this thing and mounted it really quickly. It is absolutely backwards. That's an LPVO scope. It should be turned around the other way. And you can also tell that by how the mounts are made. They're pretty much industry standard, that you can tell that that mount is absolutely backwards. It might even, I think it's a Trigicon. I think it's one of their VCOGs, actually, now that I look at it a little bit closer. I can't really tell because this photo was taken on a potato. The forward grip is mounted far too close. And that's also part of the whole, like, they've got the stock fully extended. He doesn't really fit around the rifle in this configuration because they've got it set up completely wrong and handed it to him. But that forward grip should be about 1/2 to 3/4 the way up the rail, depending on the length of the arm. You can see that his arm is bent real close back like this, and that's because they've placed that thing wrong. It should be farther up to open him up a little bit, give him more purchase on the forward part of the gun, which is the whole purpose of having a point of contact up there. At this point, you might as well just grab hold of the mag well. It's going to be roughly the same amount of control. So that needs to be mounted farther up. And if you look really closely, you can see that the rail isn't even properly attached. It's not in the delta ring. The top cover is totally sprung up. It looks to me like they probably, they probably did it backwards. You're supposed to put the top one on first, and then the bottom one, they probably just got frustrated with it and couldn't get the top to close because they did it backwards. So as far as the analysis of the gun is concerned, armor fail. Big time, buddy. Sorry. Now let's move on to the instructor that is clearly standing there holding him. So he's taken an open bladed stance, which is, again, as we mentioned earlier, especially when shooting fully automatic weapons, absolutely wrong. What that does is wraps you farther into the gun and does not put your mass behind the rifle. And that gun is, even though it's a 5.56 gun, it's going to recoil, and it's going to be harder to control the recoil. Thank God they're in the middle of the ocean, because he does not have proper purchase around the rifle. Part of that is because they have him set up with the stock fully extended. We need to collapse that stock down based on the length of his arms, probably about half as far. I don't advocate that he shoot all the way crushed up, but he is a relatively thin person, so he probably could get away with that. But he needs to rotate that shoulder forward, square up to the direction of fire, and what that does is put your mass behind the rifle. Now, that will necessitate his arm. So if we go like this, where he's at, right, if you lock this in place, that will require his arm to open as well. And then if we move that forward grip out, it will relax the musculature in the tricep there ever so slightly, and that will give him more control forward. Right now, he's just absolutely topsy-turvy with all that. And then, of course, we have that chicken wing. He's going to fly away in a stiff breeze. He's creating a solid airfoil there. And again, this is all on the instructor putting him in the wrong position. If he simply rotated himself around and dropped that elbow, the rest of it basically falls into place. How I usually instruct people to get into the correct position for shooting a rifle like that is I square them up to the target and I have them put their hand like this. And then I put the rifle, pistol grip first, in their hand. And then I tell them to look at the target, drop the rifle into their hand, and then raise the sight to their eye. This clearly was not done. This whole operation here. That is my analysis of the photo. Let me know if you spotted anything else in the photo that needs to be added in the comment section down below. Again, sorry to this guy who has now become the butt of the internet joke, but this is another example of the government is never the answer.